Dear God, where are they coming from? Where? If you thought the Tex and Zurg trailer was bad, there's another lost THX trailer I discovered. I was having an Oreo ice cream, just being myself. When my mum came home, she found this DVD in the Lifeline shop. The DVD was called THX, Tex and Randall. The cover consisted of the Monsters Inc. characters, Sully, Mike, Celia, and Boo looking around worried, while Tex and Randall are in the background. I remember encountering a DVD, but with Toy Story characters, and Tex teamed up with Zurg to eliminate Woody, Buzz, Bo Peep, and Jessie. I didn't bother hesitating, so I just went to watch it in my room once I finished my ice cream. I inserted the disc into my portable DVD to start watching it. Once the DVD started, it showed the Walt Disney Home Entertainment logo, before cutting to the menu. The menu had the same design as the one from the Tex and Zurg trailer, only that the Monsters Inc. characters were in the place of the Toy Story characters. The menu options were even the same as said DVD. I pressed play to watch the DVD to see what the trailer looked like. I pressed play before a warning came up. This trailer was made for the theatrical release of Babysitter Wanted, despite not being THX certified, and contains content that are not eligible for children to view. Please watch if you need to. This looks bad, I whispered to myself. The trailer started with a shot of a hotel at night with clear walls. After about 4 seconds, Tex and Randall came into the shot.
Hey Randy, are you ready?
Tex asked with determination.
I am, Tex, and I plan to be ready,
Randall replied, grinning. The duo grabbed out their weapons. Tex got out his chainsaw as usual, and Randall grabbed out a handsaw. The two entered the hotel. It then cut to a dining room with the actors John Goodman, Billy Crystal, and Jennifer Tilly, who turned out to be Sully, Mike, and Celia's voice actors.
Have you two heard about a psychotic robot going on the loose lately?
Crystal asked.
No, but I heard about the deaths of people going on, Tilly replied. Maybe we should watch the news.
Good idea. Let's watch the news and hear what's happening, said Goodman. Goodman then grabbed a remote control on the table and went to turn on the television. It cut to the news channel with a woman talking about Tex. This just in. We have heard about the tragic deaths of many people whose lives were taken by a robot. We have no proof yet, but here is some footage that The television was suddenly turned off. The three people then looked shocked and confused.
Hey, goodies,
Tex's voice said in a sing-song voice. The trio then turned around and noticed that Tex was in the doorway.
How are ya?
Tex asked before chuckling. Are you the robot Billy was talking about? Tilly asked. Tex's face grew into his usual cartoony grin before saying,
Yes, little lady, I am the robot he was talking about, but I'm not alone.
Randall then uncamouflaged next to Tex, grinning evilly. The three people gasped in shock. Does that lizard look familiar to me? Goodman asked. Randall chuckled with glee.
Yes, I am a so-called lizard, I remind you of. The name's Randall.
Tex began to speak again.
Want to know what time it is?
What is it? Crystal asked.
Time to have a party with a Tyrannosaurus Tex!
Tex shouted. Tex started up his chainsaw and Randall held up his sword to kill the trio with. The trio then ran into the middle bedroom to hide. Goodman locked the door so that they can't get in. Tex began to chainsaw the door down, while Randall began sawing the doorknob to open it forcefully. The trio began to get scared watching the chaos happen. Randall kicked down the door, laughing evilly. Just as he was about to march towards the people, he turned around to face Tex.
Hey Tex, why don't we trade weapons? Randall, you're a genius,
Tex chuckled. The duo then swapped their weapons around. Randall then charged up towards the trio to kill them with Tex's chainsaw. Just as Randall was about to kill Billy Crystal, it abruptly cutted to a shot of the hotel from outside. I can only hear the sounds of the chainsaw buzzing the people's blood-curdling screams, and blood and flesh splattering. My eyes widened in shock watching that scene. What was I seeing? Why did this exist? The scene then cut to black, but the trailer wasn't over yet. It cut to a wide shot of the THX logo in the dark. At that moment, Sully, Mike, Celia, and Boo walked into the shop. I was wondering where that door would lead to. You can be a bit of an expert, Michael, Celia spoke. Boo worryingly pointed to the THX logo, speaking in baby talk. Oh, this isn't something you need to worry about, Boo. It's just a statue, Sully told Boo, trying to calm her down. Mike then reassured the group that they will be okay. Calm down, everybody. The door that is activated is right in that hallway. I'm pretty sure we'll be back by afternoon before someone will kill us. I don't think that Randall would even be in. Mike's sentence was interrupted by an evil echoing chuckle. Boo whimpered, already getting scared. Sully hushed her to calm her down. It's okay, Boo. I've got you, he said, trying to reassure her. The same chuckle was heard again. Celia already got worried. Who's here? Show yourself, she demanded. After the monsters and little girl looked around for 5 seconds, Tex suddenly landed in front of Mike, sending him falling backwards. Tex? Mike questioned. Randall then unbledded next to Tex. Bruce squealed in horror at the sight of Randall. Randall, Sully growled angrily. How did you escape the human world? We meet again, Sullivan. We meet again, Randall teased, grinning. What are you doing here? Tex spoke. Sully and Mike walked towards the serial killers and glared angrily at them as the former put Boo down. Listen here, Randall. Kidnapping children? Scaring children? That is not right. You should never kidnap a child. Never scare a child. Neither should you never kill a child. That is wrong. And worst of all, you're teaming up with a robot who turns out to be a psychopath. I don't scare children anymore because I saw that look on a petrified little girl's face. That told me to stop, Sully began. You heard what my friend said, Mike said. And for you, Red Robot, killing people over a petty reason is not right. If they were ever afraid of you or your company, just accept the fact that they don't like you or just ignore them. We will report you to the CDA and have you executed if you're going to keep this up. Randall chuckled evilly after hearing the two monsters talk. Do you think we'll be ashamed of ourselves, Wazowski? I don't think so, said Randall. Sully glared angrily and marched towards Randall to attack him, only for Tex to charge up and kick him in the face. Sully skid on the floor, away from the group. He regained balance and got up weakly. Come and catch me, Sullivan, Randall teased before camouflaging. Sully threw his arms around to catch where Randall's chuckles can be heard the entire scene, before Sully's neck began to get crushed and began to choke by nothing. Sully! Mike and Celia exclaimed. Boo whimpered in fear. Tex walked up to Sully, who was still being strangled, laughing stupidly, holding a dagger. He then stabbed Sully in the chest as he bled to death and fell to the ground. Randall uncamouflaged before unwrapping himself around from Sully's neck. Boo began to cry looking at Sully's corpse and shed dozens of tears. Mike embraced her to comfort her. Tex and Randall turned to the monsters and girl and said, Which monster should the T-Man extinguish next? Mike, Celia, and Boo exchanged glances before darting off, as Celia picked up Boo to carry her. Go! Go! Randall ordered before he and Tex ran after them. Quick! Mike exclaimed as he and the team went to look for the door they went through. Celia pointed to a wall. This way! She said. Not long after, Boo was snatched out of Celia's grasp by an invisible figure before the former was pushed to the floor. Tex then dropped down in front of Boo, who let out a loud, ear-piercing, blood-curdling scream once she saw him. The volume of Boo's shriek was so loud I had to cover my ears before it stopped. Once I went to watch it again, I noticed blood on my hands. Shit, I muttered. Bruce's shriek made my ears bleed.
Hey, little girl, Tex said, chuckling.
Brew whimpered, trying to back away, before tripping back.
What's this? A machine that Handy Randy didn't instigate on you?
Tex asked as he held up the scream extractor. Randall watched in glee and evil, preparing to see Brew suffocate.
Well, bottoms up!
Tex exclaimed. He then clasped the machine over Brew's mouth, and she began to let out a muffled scream as her screams were being extracted. Randall and Tex laughed maniacally, watching the little girl suffer. Mike and Celia stared in horror, watching the 2-year-old suffocating. The muffled screams went on and on before Brew fell to the ground, out of breath. It then showed the most heartbreaking scene in this trailer. Brew was on the ground motionless, and her face was pale white. "Oh no," Mike whispered. "Poor Boo," Celia whimpered.
"Celia, we gotta get back to the monster world! There's no going back now!"
Mike demanded. He grabbed Celia by the hand and the couple ran off again. Just then, Celia was hit on the back by the engine of Tex's chainsaw. She fell to the floor and groaned in pain.
"Schmoopsy poo!"
Mike exclaimed. Randall and Tex ran up to Celia while the latter held a dagger.
"Hey, you two leave my schmoopsy poo alone!"
Mike berated.
"Googly bear, please escape alone," Celia moaned weakly.
Celia was then stabbed in the eye by the dagger, killing her. My heart skipped a beat at that scene. Dear God, what have I seen? Mike gasped loudly, seeing his girlfriend's lifeless corpse. Tex and Randall then turned to Mike, facing him, before the former pulled out his chainsaw and started it up to kill him with, and the latter held out his handsaw. Mike screamed and ran away to evade the two criminals and escape. Tex began to swing his chainsaw around, laughing like crazy as Randall tagged along. Mike then found the hallway and attempted to go through the door, but it was shredded in half by Tex's chainsaw. Mike ran again to find a place to hide, with Tex and Randall shredding everything that got in their way, such as decorations, walls, and even photos. Mike then found a wall that he could hide behind. He hid behind it to catch breath, but lowered it so he won't get killed.
"Oh, Wazowski, where are you?" Tex said in a sing-song voice. Come out, whatever you are," Randall said. "We're not going to kill you. We're only gonna hurt you really bad."
Mike hid back behind the wall to avoid being caught and silently panted. Tex then put on his sensibility to calculate where Mike was, and he did.
"Hey, Randall, I know where Wazowski is."
Mike widened his only eye in shock when he heard what Tex said. At that moment, Tex appeared right in front of Mike. Mike let out a short scream once he saw the evil robot right in front of him.
"Time to have a sexy time with Texy," he said before chuckling evilly.
Tex grabbed Mike by the leg and he flew off into the sky. The green Cyclops screamed as he was being kidnapped by the robot before they hovered in the air.
"Ready to go skydiving with a T-boy, Wazowski?" Tex teased. "No! I demand you to put me down properly, immediately!" shouted Mike.
Tex chuckled and pulled his cartoony grin after Mike said that.
"Very well, your wish has been granted."
Tex then ungripped from Mike's leg and the green monster fell screaming as he plummeted 100 feet. He then hit the ground and the sound of bones breaking was heard, which could possibly mean that his legs broke from the fall. Randall then stepped into the scene, holding his handsaw. Tex dropped down on the opposite side, holding his chainsaw.
"I think it's time for you to say goodbye, Wazowski,"
Randall said before chuckling sinisterly. Mike could not get up as his legs were broken.
"You know what? You two are monsters, as in psychopaths. I hope you have a fun time in hell for your actions,"
Mike shouted angrily. Tex then started up his chainsaw and Randall twirled his handsaw around. Mike began to whimper at the sight. Tex got his chainsaw ready and sawed Mike's arms off while Randall sawed his legs off. Mike began to let out a realistic, blood-curdling scream as he was being mutilated to death by the two criminals, while they laughed like crazy, torturing their victim. The criminals then backed away from Mike, and he was completely amputated. His arms and legs were sawed off, and blood was leaking from them. Mike began to slowly die as he bled to death as his eye turned wide open and his mouth became agape. The scene then cut to black. But the trailer wasn't over. It showed just one more scene. It showed a shot of the wardrobe door being opened, revealing Thaddeus Bile, holding a soccer ball and jacks. Time to amuse some children? Bile looked around the hotel room before noticing the corpses of Goodman, Crystal, and Tilly. What happened? Bile asked in concern. He dropped the soccer ball and jacks and went to investigate the entire hotel. He looked around the hotel to see who was responsible for the crimes, until he heard a chuckle echo through a hall. The chuckling came from Tex, who was standing next to Randall.
Hey there, Bluey, Tex mocked. Where's your mommy?
Mr. Bile shivered in fear, seeing the grimdark faces of Tex and Randall through the corridor.
Your laughter days are over. But don't worry, I'll take good care of Monsters, Inc., Randall snickered.
The two criminals then ran towards Bile, with Tex starting up his chainsaw and chasing him with it. Bile screamed and ran away from the two serial killers. As he ran to the exit, Tex threw his chainsaw like a frisbee and it hit against the back of Bile's head by causing him to receive brain damage and fall on the floor. Bile grunted in pain as he was in pain. Randall then crouched down and opened Bile's mouth wide open to reach into it. I began to hear the sound of flesh ripping while Bile began screaming in pain while watching that horrible scene. Randall grinned evilly as he continued to reach down Bile's mouth before pulling out his tongue with blood dripping out of it. Tex grabbed the tongue out of Randall's hand and performed a turkey slap on his face.
You've been turkey slapped, bitch!
Tex said with glee. He pulled out his chainsaw to start it up to kill Bile, while the latter whimpered as he was about to die.
Out of a dirt, you bitch!
Tex said. Once Tex swung his chainsaw down on Bile, it cut to black with him screaming, the sound of the chainsaw running, and blood splattering. The trailer then reached its ending point. It showed a wide shot of the THX logo and the screaming deep note raised. Instead of adult screams, it was entirely filled with children screaming. I widened my eyes in shock hearing the traumatizing screams of random children. Out of the blue, Tex dropped down into the shot and Randall uncamouflaged next to him, and they grinned evilly.
Greetings, viewers. You won't believe what Texy did this time. He has killed 3 monsters in this hideout along with a little girl, Tex began. That's right. I even helped out for him, said Randall. So remember this, so-called Pixar viewers. If you are ever scared of me, Randall, or my company, we will track you down, Tex remarked.
Randall then finished the monologue by saying,
or even worse, I will extract your screams with my newly programmed scream extractor.
Randall and Tex then spoke in unison before leaving.
Have a good night and sweet nightmares!
Tex pressed a button on his chest and flew off into the shadows, laughing evilly, while Randall walked away before the trailer faded to black. The famous THX slogan, "The audience is listening," was displayed on the screen for 10 seconds. I was appalled by the nature of this trailer. I attempted to eject the disc out of my DVD player, but as soon as I was about to, one more picture came up. It was a close-up shot of Randall grinning, but he was stained in blood, he was drooling blood out of his mouth, and I could hear a loud shriek of a female and this distorted version of Sully's roar in the background. That image scared the crap out of me. The DVD then ended for real. I became extremely appalled after watching that terrifying DVD. I waited for my mum to come home at 2 p.m. so I can inform her about the DVD. Once she came home, I showed her all the evidence and we reported the DVD to both THX and Pixar. The former company asked for the DVD back, so we sent it back to them. I couldn't sleep for the night later. I had many nightmares about Tex and Randall killing me in different ways and raiding my house. As always, Adam Kennington is responsible for this disaster. Please report a lost media that Kennington made. Please do.